Hi, we are 4 students from the University of Lorraine, Nancy, who are enrolled in the European Master in Lexicography, EMLex, and pertain to the Samuel Linde class. We spent the second semester of our master, together with the other students from the Samuel Linde class, from Braga, Budapest, Erlangen, Rome, and Santiago at the University of Silesia in Katowice.
Now we're back in Nancy and at the Université de Lorraine for our third semester. We're shooting this video in the framework of the course Lexical Analysis taught by Alain Polguer and Eva Bouchy. In the first part of the course, we carried out a task on meaning text theory. Now we're working on compiling an entry of the Dictionnaire Étymologique Roman. The DÉRom is an international, mostly European project which brings together specialists of all Romance languages, from Sardinian through Romanian to Portuguese, in order to edit a new Romance etymological dictionary. It is headed by Eva Bouchy, a senior researcher at the CNRS and a member of the ATILF lab, funded by CNRS and Université de Lorraine, and Wolfgang Schweikart, a professor at the Universität des Saarlandes in Saarbrücken.
Many of the contributors of the DÉRom are young scholars who compile one entry or several entries as a training experience in the field of historical lexicography. The DÉRom has already organized 2 summer schools, the first in 2010 and the second in 2014, and a third one will certainly follow in the years to come. Furthermore, unlike Myers-Lübke's Romanisches Etymologisches Wörterbuch, which constitutes in many regards its point of departure, the DÉRom is not the work of one individual, but that of a team of about 50 researchers from 17 countries. For this reason, it was absolutely necessary to write down in a very precise way not only the DÉRom's editorial standards, but also the different steps one has to go through when compiling an article. This information has been recorded in an internal resource called Livre Bleu, available at the ATILF Resource Center, whose 6th paper edition from 2011 is 259 pages long and whose digital edition is constantly updated.
2 reasons motivate this video. First, Livre Bleu is written entirely in French, and as specialists of lexicography and metalexicography, we wanted to make the DÉRom's trade secret, if one can call it that, accessible to everybody. Secondly, the Livre Bleu consists solely of written text, and we thought that our video, which we hope will be more practical, more concrete and more explanatory, could help its readers, even if they are fluent in French, to better understand what the Livre Bleu explains on a theoretical level. So please follow us through the different steps one has to go through when compiling a DÉRom entry.
The first part of a DÉRom entry, which has to be drawn up, is the bibliography. This might come as a surprise, as bibliographies often come rather at the end of the compiling process. The reason of this peculiarity lies in the fact that bibliography of a DÉRom entry provides only bibliographical references, which are relevant for Romance in general, whereas bibliographical references relevant for individual Romance languages appear in the data section. Thus, by compiling first the bibliography section, the author of an entry acquires at once an overall view of the features and issues of their entry. In particular, this step of the workflow helps identifying the different cognates of the relevant cognate set.
We begin always with Myers-Lübke's Romanisches Etymologisches Wörterbuch, REW. According to the REW, the following languages provide cognates for the entry Multone: Northern Italian dialects, Friulian, French, Occitan, and Catalan. When first looking at this map, I asked myself if there are really no cognates in the adjacent languages: Ladin, Romansh, Franco-Provençal, Gascon, and Aragonese. Actually, when drawing up the bibliography section, we came up with 3 more cognates. On the one hand, Paolo Fares' Postille Italiane al Romanisches Etymologisches Wörterbuch provided a mention of Ladin. And sure enough, the Etymologisches Wörterbuch des Dolomiten Ladinischen confirmed this cognate, Ladin of the Fassa Valley, Mouton. On the other hand, Walter von Walpos' invaluable Etymologisches Wörterbuch des Französischen, FEW, which is dedicated to French, Franco-Provençal, Occitan, and Gascon, contributed Franco-Provençal Mouton and Gascon Mouton. On this map, cognates provided by the REW, the DÉRom's famous predecessor, are marked in yellow, Latin, Faris edition, is marked in pink, and Franco-Provençal and Gascon, contributed by the FEW, are colored in blue. Perhaps we will unearth other cognates later on.
Apart from helping us establish a provisional version of the cognate set, the compiling of the bibliography item made us aware of an important issue of this entry. Indeed, several sources mention a major difficulty of this etymology, namely the signified of the etymon. Is it just plainly sheep, or adult male sheep that can breed, ram, or adult male castrated sheep, whether? We will be sure to pay attention to the exact meaning of the different cognates in order to be able to reconstruct their common ancestor.
After having drawn up a provisional version of the bibliography item of our entry, we are impatient to know how our work will look in the online dictionary. Of course, the entry is not yet publishable, but Gilles Sauvé, the computer engineer responsible for the DÉRom's XML schema and in general its software development, added a feature which enables us to visualize the future entry online. In the section of the DÉRom website restricted to the members of the project. On the DÉRom's website we select Passer en mode rédaction, which means switch to author mode. Then we have to identify ourselves through the user ID and the password. After that we click on Article XML, then Visualisation d'un article, then on Parcourir or browse, in order to upload the XML file to the website. When clicking on Visualisation, the current version of the entry appears on the screen. Of course, while this version of the bibliography item resembles already a completed bibliography item, the information in the other sections of our entry, in particular in the data section, is still very fragmentary.
Once we consulted Meyer Lübke's Romanisches Etymologisches Wörterbuch and found the provisional cognate set, we can proceed with fleshing out the bibliographic index, which is the list of mandatory sources to consult before compiling a DÉRom article. Let us consider Catalan sources as an example. In the bibliographic index, there are 4 references concerning Catalan. The task is to check all of them and trying to find the best information possible concerning molto, the Catalan cognate. In our case, the search resulted only in 3 sources, 1 minor one and 2 important dictionaries, the Dictionnaire Català Valencia Balear, DCVB, and Corominas Etymological Dictionary of Catalan, DCAT. The first one doesn't provide relevant information for our article. Each source has to be listed in a specific way. For some of them, you should provide volume, number of paragraphs, pages, etc. The next step is to examine the dictionary articles themselves and arrange the information for them in the XML document. Let us consider the Catalan cognate molto again. We start by indicating the grammatical gender of the cognate in question, that is masculine or feminine. After that, we encode the meaning of the cognate, for example, ram, weather, or sheep. For example, DCAT says it is a masculine noun which has the meaning ram. Finally, we add the definition and the first written testimony, and also indicate the bibliographic sources used for compiling the Catalan cognate. Apart from the information provided for Catalan, the DCAT contains another important finding. There is an old Aragonese lexeme molton, which could have been an item pertaining to our cognate set, but which Corominas analyzes as a borrowing from Catalan. Of course, we have to go through the same steps for the other cognates before the data section can be considered complete.
As we go along with introducing the information in the XML document, we also have to fill out the signature section, meaning that we indicate the names of all the people who contributed in any way to the entry. The first step consists of specifying the name of the author of an entry. In our case, we are 5 authors, each of us having, amongst other things, the responsibility of a specific cognate. For instance, as I examine the information in the different bibliographic resources on the Friolan cognate molton, I insert my name in the signature section. Similarly proceeds also the rest of the team that has been working on their respective cognates. It means that Eva inserts her name for the Italian cognate, Nikolay his for the French cognate, Polina indicates hers for Occitan, and Toma hers for Catalan. Furthermore, we also point out anyone who has contributed to collecting the necessary data on cognates in any way. It means that, for example, in the case of Friolian, I also mentioned Giorgos Kodrini's name, who is the design specialist for Friolian within the DÉRom project, because he provided me with information about a Friolian source that was not available at the library of the ATILF, thus helping us to complete the DÉRom article in its entirety. Later on, in the compiling process, we will add the signatures of the members of the DÉRom project who will, according to their specific area of expertise, revise parts of the entry. For instance, Jean-Paul Chauveau will probably have something to say about French and Occitan, and Reina Bastardas will surely help us improve the Catalan part. In this way, as the entry progresses, the signature section grows progressively.
Once the data section is more or less completed, in other words, once our cognate series is set up, we can start reconstructing the common ancestor of this cognate series, or cognate set. The proto-language of the Romance languages being Proto-Romance, the reconstructed common ancestor of Italian Multon, and its cognates will be a Proto-Romance item. Even before starting the proper reconstruction process, we may ask ourselves what diastratic variety of Proto-Romance the reconstructed etymon will pertain to. Will it belong to common Proto-Romance or to Proto-Romance in a narrow sense, that is, the common ancestor of all Romance languages, or will it rather belong to a more recent and geographically less widely spread variety of Proto-Romance? Our cognate set is made up of lexical units pertaining to Italian, Friulian, Latin, French, Franco-Provençal, Occitan, Gascon, and Catalan. As no cognate has been found in Sardinian, the language which split first genetically from the rest, it is not possible to reconstruct a common Proto-Romance etymon. And as there is no Romanian cognate either, the common ancestor of our cognate set will not pertain to continental Proto-Romance either. It will rather belong to the common ancestor of our 8 languages, plus Veliot, Istriot, Romansh, Aragonese, Spanish, Asturian, Galician, and Portuguese. Using a term going back to Robert Hall, we will call this more recent and geographically limited stage of Proto-Romance Italo-Western Proto-Romance.
The actual process of reconstructing the etymon is subdivided into 3 parts. The first one is reconstruction of the signifier, the second one reconstruction of the part of speech, and the third one reconstruction of the signified. According to Lyle Campbell, who explains the method beautifully in the chapter The Comparative Method Up Close and Personal of his textbook Historical Linguistics, whose 3rd edition was published in 2013, there are basically 4 criteria one can rely on when conducting comparative reconstruction. The first one is directionality, that is making use of known directions of change, like voiceless stops, p, t, k, which are often voiced between vowels and become b, d, g. The second one is majority wins, and the third one is factoring in features held in common, and the fourth is economy. First we will consider the reconstruction of the part of speech of the proto-lexeme, as it forms, in this particular case, the easiest part of the reconstruction process. Actually, all 8 cognates of our cognate set are masculine nouns. Thus we reconstruct on the basis of the criterion 2 majority wins and the 4 economy, a masculine noun for our Italio-Western Proto-Romance etymon. Then we set out to reconstruct the signifier of the etymon, or the common ancestor of our 8 cognates. In order to do that, we have to reconstruct each proto-phoneme from which the phonemes in the different Romance lexemes be identified as cognates descended. Table 1 represents the cognate set made up from Italian muton with the variant mutone, Friulian muton, Latin muton, French and Franco-Provençal muton, Occitan multo, Gascon mutu, and Catalan multo. 8 rows of the table contain the Romance cognates, whereas the top row is dedicated to the reconstructed etymon. As for the columns, they list the different phonemes of the cognates as well as a subrasegmental feature, lexical stress. The symbol empty set stands for absence of a phoneme.
As shown in Table 2, the reconstruction of 2 protophonemes is very easy. Based on the criterion 4 economy, we will reconstruct the bilabial nasal m out of 8 m, and the voiceless bilabial stop t out of 8 t. The same economic criterion will dictate that we reconstruct the lexical stress on the syllable starting with the voiceless bilabial stop t for our Italo-Western Proto-Roman etymon. Even if, in the case of contemporary French, the stress we observe in mouton is not lexical but syntactic. That means that we will observe the same stress in the phrase le mouton, but also in le petit mouton and in le joli petit mouton. On account of the criterion 2, majority wins, we simply discard the French testimony.
Table 3 concentrates on the vowel of the initial syllable, which is always a back vowel. Either the close mid back-rounded vowel O or the close back-rounded vowel U. We will now try to correlate the set of phonemes with the noun sound correspondences between Romance languages as established by Xavier Gouvert in his chapter Reconstruction phonologique of the first volume of the DÉRom dictionary, DÉRom 1. It appears that our phoneme set matches exactly the sound correspondences observed in the vowel of the initial syllable of the reflexes of Proto-Romance corona, crown, Italian corona, French couronne, and so on. We will thus reconstruct the close mid-back rounded vowel O for the initial vowel of our Italo-Western Proto-Romance etymon. Actually, the sound correspondence we observe for the initial vowel of our cognate set could also theoretically trace back to the near-close back-rounded vowel U. Indeed, in the initial syllable, the sound correspondence between Italian, Friulian, French, and so on is exactly the same for the reflexes of the close mid-back-rounded vowel O and the reflexes of the near-close back-rounded vowel U. The only difference between the phoneme sets lies in Sardinian. Sardinian O points back to Proto-Romance O, and Sardinian U points back to Proto-Romance O. In order to decide whether to reconstruct the close mid-back rounded vowel O or the near-close back-rounded vowel U, we will have a look at Heinrich Lausberg's textbook, Romanische Sprachwissenschaft, in its most complete version, that is the second edition of its Italian translation, which goes back to 1976. It appears that in the common ancestor of Italian, Friulian, French, Catalan, Spanish, Portuguese, and so on, that is Italo-Western Proto-Romance, also often called Vulgar Latin, the two phonemes O and U merged into one in the form of O, whereas they stayed distinct in Proto-Sardinian, as well as Proto-Romanian, but this is not relevant in our context.
Table 4 illustrates what happened between common Proto-Romance and Proto-Sardinian on the one hand, and Italo-Western Proto-Romance on the other hand. Two mergers took place in Proto-Sardinian: the open mid-back rounded vowel O and the close mid-back rounded vowel O merged into O, and the near close back rounded vowel U and the close back rounded vowel U merged into U. As a result, the close mid-back rounded vowel O and the near close back rounded vowel O stayed distinct. But in Italo-Western Proto-Romance, another merger took place. The close mid-back rounded vowel O and the near close back rounded vowel O merged into O. For this reason, the sound correspondences displayed on page 74 of Xavier Gouvert, chapter of the DÉRom 1, are identical for all languages whose common ancestor is Italo-Western Proto-Romance. As Italo-Western Proto-Romance did no longer have the near close back rounded vowel O in its phoneme inventory, we will reconstruct Italo-Western Proto-Romance O. Thus, going back to table 3, we reconstruct the close mid-back rounded vowel O in the initial syllable of our etymon and not, as we thought before, under the influence of the REW and other previous etymologies, the near close back rounded vowel U.
Table 5 concentrates on the next phoneme, whereas half of the cognates Italian, Friulian, Occitan, and Catalan feature a lateral approximant L, the other half, Latin, French, Franco-Provençal, and Gascon, don't have any phoneme in this position. Campbell's criterion 1, directionality, will guide us in reconstructing the lateral approximant L as their common ancestor. Indeed, we know of no rule which would state that Italian, Friulian, Occitan and Catalan developed an L before a consonant, whereas there are many parallels for Latin, French, Franco-Provençal and Gascon having dropped preconsonal L.
In Table 6, for instance, the Romance reflexes of coltello, knife, are displayed. Italian coltello, French couteau intercognates. It is easy to see that the distribution between the lateral approximant le and 0 is very similar to the distribution in our etymon, even if in some cases the trill re has replaced here the lateral approximant, most probably because of dissimilation.
Now let's have a look at the stressed vowel. As shown in Table 7, with the exception of Gascon, which displays the close back-rounded vowel U, the cognates of our cognate set feature either the close mid-back-rounded vowel O or the nasal vowel ON. It is widely known that only very few Romance languages, basically French and Franco-Provençal and Portuguese, contain nasal vowels in their phoneme inventory. We are not speaking about mere phonetic contextual variants. Thus, on grounds of criteria 1, directionality, and 2, majority wins, it is safe to say that Proto-Romans did not know any nasal vowels. Hence, we have to look for an explanation of the nasal vowel on in French and Franco-Provençal. As the corresponding non-nasal vowel in Italian, Friulian and Ladin is followed by the alveolar nasal consonant n, the criterion for economy leads us to consider these two phonemes together, as shown in Table 8. So we reconstruct O plus N for Italo-Western Proto-Romance, and we consider that the reflexes of this sequence of proto-phonemes sometimes resulted, like in French and Franco-Provençal, in a single phoneme, which combined features of the first and features of the second proto-phoneme. This is a regular sound correspondence we know from cases like Italian monte, French mont, mountain, or Italian ponte, French pont, bridge.
At last, in Table 9, we consider the final set of sound correspondences. For morphological reasons, the possible proto-phonemes are very few in this position. Indeed, we know that the common ancestor of our cognate set is a masculine noun, and Proto-Romance masculine nouns end either in U or in E. As a matter of fact, this last phoneme set is made up of mostly zeros, with a close mid-front unrounded vowel E in parentheses for Italian. Why this E in parentheses? Actually, Northern Italian molton forms the only genuine Italian cognate. It is the regular reflex of the etymon. But standardized Italian montone, whose N in place of L is probably due to a cross with the transitive verb montare, to copulate with, rems being associated with studs, is still pivotal for our reconstruction. Indeed, all other cognates, including Northern Italian molton, pertain to languages whose reflex for both the final vowels U and E is 0. Thus, we must exploit standardized Italian montone for reconstructing the final vowel E, which represents, at least etymologically, an inflectional suffix, more precisely the mark for the accusative singular. As a conclusion, we can state that the common ancestor of our cognate set is Italo-Western Proto-Romance moltone.
Last but not least, we will carry out the reconstruction of the signified of our etymon. The different cognates display three meanings. The first one is all 8 involved languages: Italian, Friulian, Latin, French, Franco-Provençal, Occitan, Gascon and Catalan, now the meaning adult male sheep that can breed, ram. The second one, 6 languages, Italian, Latin, French, Franco-Provençal, Occitan and Gascon, have cognates with the meaning adult male castrated sheep, wether. And the third one, finally 4 languages, French, Franco-Provençal, Occitan and Gascon, feature cognates meaning farm animal with thick wool that eats grass and is kept for its wool and meat, sheep. Of course, it is never possible to completely dismiss the possibility of plural innovations or of borrowings within the language family. But nothing points specifically in this direction for any of these 3 sets of lexical units. We will thus consider that Italo-Western Proto-Romance moltone is polysemous. It is a vocable made up of 3 lexemes, whose meanings are ram, wether and sheep.
An areological analysis will help us establish the internal chronology of these 3 lexemes. As shown in Map 1, the lexeme meaning rem is the most widespread. All involved languages, including Friulian and Latin in the east and Catalan in the west, present a cognate, though signified is adult male sheep that can breed, ram. The set of lexemes presenting the meaning weather is less extensive. As Map 2 demonstrates, Friulian, the easternmost language of this lexical family, and Catalan, its westernmost member, are missing. Finally, Map 3 displays the 4 languages which share the hyponym meaning sheep: French, Franco-Provençal, Occitan, and Gascon, that is the most central languages of the breed. Such a geographical distribution suggests that the lexeme meaning rem, that is the most widespread one, is the oldest one, and that the lexeme meaning sheep, that is the least widespread one, is the youngest.
This aeological analysis is confirmed by the relative datings of the different lexemes. Indeed, it is quite noteworthy that 2 cognates meaning ram and a cognate meaning weather did not survive till today. The French cognate meaning ram disappeared at the beginning of the 17th century. The Occitan cognate with the same meaning is only known through a hapax of the 13th century, which means that it was already fading away, and the Gascon cognate whose signified is weather disappeared in the middle of the 16th century. On the other hand, all 4 cognates with the meaning sheep are still in use today. This is a very valuable clue. Clearly, in these 4 languages, the more recent meaning sheep ousted the older meanings ram and weather.
We are now in possession of all necessary elements in order to write the etymological comment of our entry. After having compiled the first version of the article, we will send it to the revisor of the DÉRom team, who are specialists of the different Romance languages and will help us improve our work. Soon after, our entry Multone will be published on the website of the project, and then, in 2019, also in the 3rd volume of the dictionary, also called DÉRom 3. We will be very proud.